During my time in the racing game community, I've seen countless problems and controversies. From the excessive fanboyism for certain games, to the divide between arcade and simulation, the community certainly has its issues. Despite this, I never found the space to be so bad that it wasn't worth being in. However, starting in the beginning of 2023, this all changed. We got a huge wave of content talking about the decline of racing games. While we did get similar videos before 2023, the sheer abundance of them during this time, while also being pushed by the YouTube algorithm, ended up causing massive damage in the community. I've been noticing way more arrogance, pessimism, and rehashed points from these videos. The community has been so much more negative than before, to a point where it can feel extremely alienating. So, I want to talk about the current problems spurred on by those videos to better understand and address these serious issues. Firstly, let's address the biggest talking point, that racing games aren't as good as before. The thing is that I actually do agree with this sentiment, as many of my favorite racing games are from 2010 and before. Plus, I'm still not happy with some of the newer releases, from their technical issues, monetization, physics, and more. So my problem isn't with the statement itself, but the toxic attitude that it creates. You'll see this same point repeated ad nauseum, usually with people saying that modern racing games suck, they're bad, not worth your time, etc. Because of this, people get so hung up on this mindset that it hurts their enjoyment with recent titles. Newer racing games can still be a lot of fun despite not being as good as previous ones. Trailout is not as good as Flatout 2, Gravel is not as good as Dirt 2, and Grid Legends is not as good as the first Grid. Yet I'm having so much fun with them that it doesn't matter. I'm not stopping myself from liking them just because they aren't as good as other games in the genre. Plus, I don't want to play the same old racing games all the time because that is boring. It's nice to play something newer, to experience its good and bad. Of course, I'm not defending the recent terrible releases or ignoring the new games that I didn't like. However, what I'm trying to say is don't let the modern racing games are bad mindset stop you from playing and experiencing recent titles. Give these new games a chance because you might find one that you actually enjoy a lot. I know people won't find one if they continue to disregard recent racing games. Another thing that I'm noticing is this negativity when it comes to upcoming games or current franchises. Being that I am a pessimistic person, I understand where it's coming from. During 2020 and 2021, I became extremely pessimistic towards the genre due to Dirt 5, Hot Shot Racing, Forza Horizon 5, and Hot Wheels Unleashed all letting me down. Nowadays, I am way more optimistic due to me enjoying a lot more of the newer releases and looking forward to upcoming games. However, I know that plenty are still not happy with the genre, which is something that I can't change. So, what I want to address is not the pessimism itself, but how it's affecting people's view of the genre. It's hard to find a series or upcoming racing game that the community is genuinely excited for, because there's so much negativity in this space. People are really making their cynicism for the genre very clear. This really affects discussions, as having hope or looking forward to something is looked down upon. Also, this pessimism is giving the impression that people have essentially given up on the genre, which sets a really bad precedent. Publishers already think that arcade racers aren't popular enough to justify investing into them. So when people say things like they don't want Need for Speed, that they aren't excited for any upcoming games, or that a series should have ended at a particular game, it is proving what the entire industry has thought for years. We should be showing these companies that we want racing games, instead of writing off the genre just like many of them did. You can want more racing games while still being pessimistic about them. I don't think we'll ever get another Burnout game at this point, but that doesn't stop me from wanting another one. So, I don't think being pessimistic about the current state of racing games is necessarily bad or unwarranted. It's just a way that people have been killing hype from themselves and constantly spreading the cynicism around that's super damaging. We as a community should want more racing games, because that is what we are all here for. I love my indie racing games. When bigger releases have let me down, smaller ones like Crumple Zone, Trail Out, Arc Racer, and Turbo Sloss really help to fulfill my racing needs. Yet, I feel a lot of these games are essentially being ignored by the community for a few key reasons. Firstly, the decline of racing game videos caused a hyper-focus on the AAA racing game space. With bigger titles being an easy target due to their shortcomings, this ends up disregarding many of the great indie racing games we received. If we also account for those games as well, the whole genre is in a better state than people might realize. Secondly, people generally expect modern racing games to have gorgeous graphics, huge car lists, and either vast open worlds or many closed circuit tracks. These smaller racing games just cannot meet those expectations, which means players might be less likely to give them a chance. Lastly, without large marketing budgets, their outreach is very limited. Unless players go out of their way to find these games, many are going to rely only on what is shown and advertised to them. Now, these problems aren't necessarily limited to racing games. People have complained about AAA gaming for many years, and indie games have struggled with things like content and marketing. Yet these issues seem to be amplified in the racing game space, especially when considering other successful indie games. I can usually name at least one or a few indie games that have seen big success in other genres. BattleBit Remastered for first-person shooters, Fall Guys for battle royales, Five Nights at Freddy's in the horror genre, you get the idea. Yet I wonder why there hasn't been anything like that in the racing genre. There have been notable releases like Hot Shot Racing and Inertial Drift, but nothing that had a similar impact. It is possible that Night Runners and or Resistor could pull this off, but we won't know until they release. This lack of at least one big indie title, on top of the previous issues I mentioned, seems to paint a picture on how I feel many people treat smaller racing games. While I know there are players who also care for indie racing games, I feel that they need more attention and support. Especially with a community that wants new and different experiences, there are indie ones that deliver on that. We just need to take the time to find these games, support the devs, and share them around. I fear if smaller racing games continue to get disregarded, more developers will give up on this space. In a genre that's already lacking in games, losing indie ones will cripple it. Things just haven't been the same in the racing game community since the beginning of 2023. From this disdain to modern racing games, the pessimism for the genre, and this lack of support for smaller games, the community is certainly struggling right now. I really love being in this fandom, and I hate to see it slowly devolve into a toxic, spiteful, and closed-off space. I hope this video can bring awareness to these issues and possibly promote much-needed changes in people's attitudes. This has been Gamer Alex. I hope you enjoyed the video, and have a great day.